Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this IPEN press conference. My name is Taddasa Merra. I am the co-chair of the International Pollutants Elimination Network, IPEN. IPEN is an international umbrella civil society organization for more than 600 NGOs in 128 countries. And IPEN has been working on different issues, including chemicals. And we are here today with this event, which is covering the UNEA 5.2 plastics policy developments and how health and plastics relate. For the last 2 months, IPEN has been doing a series of reports coming out. Just today, we are also going to have one, which is going to be released. There are new international data related to plastics, chemicals, and health. This will be presented by Mr. Bjorn Biller, the international coordinator of IPEN. Bjorn, please.
Thank you, Taddasa. It's great to be here at UNEA 5.2. As you'll see in the next slide, most of the conversation around plastics has been around the visible images of plastics and plastic waste. The challenge with that is trying to understand what are plastics. And essentially, plastics are carbon and chemicals put together to make the plastic material. And so in that, you're looking at harm from the plastic, which is quite invisible. So behind this image, there is harm that you cannot see. In order to illustrate that, IPEN and its partners across the world have been generating scientific data to visualize or to provide information which you cannot see. And I'm going to walk you through a series of reports and end on the one that we released today. The first is a series of where in countries we collected plastic pellets that have showed up on beaches across the planet. Then we analyzed those for toxic substances. The other report on the right is about plastics that has been collected and then melted and then formed into other plastic pellets as feedstock. In both of these studies, we showed a wide contamination of plastics, or to say toxic chemicals throughout all the supply chain. In summary of this, what we're showing is plastics are a significant source of chemical pollutants. Plastics transport and release toxic substances throughout their life cycle. Serious threats to human health and the ecosystem are due to the chemicals in the plastic. And in the coming years, it's going to be critical how we manage plastic. As in this image you see here, the yellow line is the growth in sales of the chemical sector, and the white line is the projected growth of plastic production. So while you may think it's a problem now, the problem is set to grow exponentially. In the next report, what we released is, this is also available in the back for those, is one that shows how plastics are poisoning the circular economy. And what we did is we looked at plastic waste management in 3 major economies, China, Indonesia, and Russia. And we saw that those systems are strained. They're about to be strained more. Plastic waste production is growing rapidly. And then we tested plastic products sold today on the market. That includes children's products, homeware products. And we looked for BPA, flame retardants, and another chemical known as PFAS. These are known toxic substances linked to harm to human health and the environment. Sorry. Technical problem here. In this report, what we're also looking at is this idea of recycling. And so if you look at once you have toxic materials in plastics and the idea of the circular economy, and you recycle that plastic, it is really recycling plastics is recycling toxic chemicals, which means you are increasing the exposure to humans in the environment when you put that material back into the system. Yeah, nice. Okay. What we're also finding is when we tested these products, there was no information available about what chemicals are in those products. BPA, which is a widely known toxic substance, is labeled as BPA-free in many places. Our plastic products are labeled, especially baby bottles. Plastic baby bottles have been labeled as BPA-free. We found that many of those bottles actually contain BPA, and it's quite widespread. I think the general concept of plastic waste and what we're looking at is plastic waste has actually turned out to be hazardous waste, and how that's being managed is another thing that this report illustrates. In these reports from Indonesia, China, and Russia, we also looked at PFAS in textiles or clothing. That PFAS was not only in cotton or say synthetic material, but other cloth material, and that was widespread. Some of the data here is of 84% of the samples tested contained at least one PFAS substance. And in the BPA baby bottles, 78% of the products tested contained BPA. Most shockingly was the flame retardant testing. All 73 samples analyzed in China, Indonesia, and Russia contain flame retardants banned under the international law known as the Stockholm Convention. Internationally banned chemicals are showing up in products today on the market. Consumers, of course, having no idea that is in the materials that they're buying. So when you look at this diagram, what you're looking at is, again, the production of plastics with oil and gas, adding chemicals to make the material, going through the use, consumers are buying that, putting them into bins, believe that they're recycling is a good concept. And where does that material go? It can be dumped, it can be traded internationally as under the guise of recycling. It can also be burned as a fuel, or it could be put back into the market. And they always refer to this 9% recycling rate. You know, if you think about it, the more that you recycle, you're also looking at more chemicals coming back into the market. So is 9%, are you trying to go above that percentage? I think that's the wrong conversation from the data that we've shown here. So coming to the last report, which is what was released just today. This looks at Australia, the first country to ban plastic waste exports. There's a lot of information about that. What we did is we looked into what did Australia do? And what that revealed is there is a loophole in that. And so that loophole is Australia is not going to ban plastic waste exports, but has allowed the transporting of plastic waste fuels. This is where you gather the plastic waste, then you process it into a material that then can be sold as a fuel. So if you look at this image, that hand is holding compressed plastic material, which is waste, and then now is able to be traded and move across the border. So you can ban plastic waste exports, but at the same time you can allow plastic waste export fuel, which is quite ironic. So this report here is a summary which is available online at the current time. And what we did is we looked at how is this impacting Southeast Asia. So there's a series of reports looking at Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Authors for these reports are currently online as well as the earlier scientific papers. Those authors are also available online for this conversation we have. And if we look back at what we find is the plastic waste fuel is under the title of what's known as refuse-derived fuel, which is another term for saying plastic waste fuel. What that is the source of that is moving from one country to a place to burn, and it's typically going to cement kilns. So when you look at this, you're looking at a toxicity issue. When you burn the plastics, you're releasing toxic substances, and you're actually looking at a climate issue. You're emitting greenhouse gases as you burn that plastic waste, and so the trend of this is quite concerning across the board. So in this, when you look at the future of plastic waste, we're saying it's hazardous waste, and we're saying it's a climate contributor, and we're saying if you create a plastic waste ban, but then you would now enable a plastic waste fuel export, you can still dump your plastic waste onto another country. So to begin to conclude here is this idea of circularity with plastics. We do not believe in that concept because in the end, if you look at the volume, you're seeing a linear economy, as shown in the yellow, is from plastic extraction of the oil and gas and the adding of chemical additives. Eventually, it will be burned under that idea of managing your own plastic waste. So as we conclude, and with the speakers here we're very thankful for to have, is most of the plastic produced is not in Asia nor Latin America. Most of the chemicals produced are not in Asia, are not in Latin America or Africa either, which emphasize the importance and the need for global controls on hazardous chemicals in plastic. So I will conclude there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bjorn. Following, we will have also some views from countries based in regions that are not major plastic nor chemical producers, as Bjorn said, from Africa and Latin America. And that will also be followed by views from Western Europe. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Sam Adokumi, who is a program coordinator of Chemicals and Waste MAS and SAICM in the Ghanan EPA. Dr. Adokumi, please.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to IPEN Bjorn also for inviting me to join this short discussion, even though it's a short notice, but I'm appreciative to that. So I would like to maybe share some few ideas and thoughts here. First of all, Ghana, where I come from, we are pleased to witness a global progress, what I call ambitious one, to address the plastic pollution or the plastic issue, the menace. And we are keen actually to build on the foreseen mandates to the negotiation of a legally binding instrument, we call the INC, to end plastic pollution in the near future. As shown a short while ago from the video, Ghana, just as many developing countries, actually receive hazardous chemicals and waste, including e-waste and plastics. I mean, often, yes. And thankfully, via global positioning system, GPS tracking, we are able to look to actually link the plastic waste, which are coming from abroad, to our jurisdiction or to our territory. And apart from that, notwithstanding these things, the plastic waste, which are also generated domestically, I mean, are equally challenging to manage in our place. And the health and environmental issues which are associated with the plastic waste and hazardous chemicals and waste in general are daunting, and they are serious issues of concern. In 2019, if I may cite an example, analyzed chicken eggs collected from Ghana, a place called Abubuloshi, which is a very popular place, revealed very high levels of toxic substances, example, dioxins, furans, and other persistent organic pollutants, which are linked to the burning of plastic waste and e-waste. So, in essence, Ghana is optimistic about the path ahead from UNEA. This UNEA 5.2 actually have agreed on a text on plastic, highlighting on health, environment, and design. And to us, this is an complementary or something that's consistent with our national efforts to promote health and protect our populations from toxic exposures, from plastic waste and other waste, and other chemical issues. And we desire that materials are designed to be toxic-free, in line with the ideas or the concept of green and sustainable chemistry. And Ghana is therefore ready and willing to work or join forces with other member states, especially those from the African region, to protect our borders, our environment, and populations from hazardous substances, chemicals, and waste, which are entering our regions from abroad. So, as an expert on the issues of the multilateral environmental agreements, called the MEAs on chemicals and waste, and the frameworks, SAICM and Beyond 2020, I trust and hope that a new global treaty on plastics can fill the gaps where chemicals regulated abroad are not crossing into Ghana or Africa. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adukomi. It was really shocking to see the examples, sample results from Ghana and how we forget this big issue and it's coming to our tables. Thank you so much for revealing that. Now I would like to invite the Peru's views on UNIA ending plastic pollution links to plastics and health. And I would like to invite Ms. Ana Teresa Lecaros, Director of Environment, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Peru.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation to have the possibility to have this exchange with you. And I just would like to first echo and share the conclusions of my colleague from Ghana. This is actually the own conclusions I would like to have from the Peruvian experience, both at the national level and here at UNIA. First, I would like to address at our national level. Our country was not mentioned, but IPEN has also research on what's going on in Latin America. And unfortunately, we have a serious problem on plastic waste and also on toxic waste. And that's why we have, at the national level, began several years ago to have specific norms and legislation on how to handle the plastic waste. As, for instance, we have a law on banning single-use bags, plastic bags. Among other efforts. That's why, as Peru, we took the lead alongside with Rwanda to present a draft resolution to this UNIA. As you know, a resolution was already adopted by the OECPR, so we're expecting it's going to be adopted tomorrow without any problem. We're sure about it tomorrow. For Peru and Rwanda and the extensive group of co-sponsors of this draft resolution, the need of a legally binding international agreement, a treaty, it's key because in our countries we are facing several of these problems, and as IPEN mentioned, we are not the producers of plastic, but this plastic and microplastic is ending in our ocean, our soil, our rivers, and our air. We have research on how microplastics are in fishes, in condores, you know, these huge Andean birds we have, and they live above 5,000 meters above sea level. So it's a real problem. And we firmly believe that with the treaty, which means an international, a global commitment to act, to be responsible on the use of plastics. And in the resolution, we have the notion of the full life cycle of plastics, meaning from the production and design and the use and the reuse, to have less plastics and, of course, not to have toxic waste outside in the environment. And specific on the health and chemicals issue, which is the key theme of this event. As Peru, I can say that we firmly believe in the One Health notion, so the planet of the health is our planet as humankind. And having a non-toxic production, design, use, and interaction with the planet is going to preserve our health. And whatever we do to the planet, we are doing this to ourselves. And with this resolution, it's the beginning of a path we all need to continue. And the most important is to be aware of all the implications of the use of reuse and waste of plastics. And that's why I would also like to thank IPEN for all the research they are doing, which are so explicit on the diagram they show us. It's pretty clear about the danger and all this, I don't know how to say in English, pervasiveness of plastic in our daily life, and how can we be aware of it and handle it and address this problem appropriately. So thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Ms. Lecaros. Now, I would like to invite His Excellency Ambassador Mr. Franz Perez, Head of International Affairs Division from Switzerland, to tell us about the Swiss views of UNIA in ending plastic pollution links to plastics and health. Please, Ambassador.
Oops. Thanks a lot, and let me begin by thanking first of all IPEN, and not only for thanking you for organizing that event, but I would say even more importantly for all the work you are doing in order to stimulate and push us in these negotiations. Reports like the one you were just presenting are so critical to take then afterwards also the right decision. So throughout all the negotiations I was following now in the last years in chemicals and waste, IPEN was one of the critical actors to help us to engage in on the right track, meaning on an ambitious track that is not looking away, but looking really at the problems. And let me also thank the colleagues from Ghana and Peru, because, and through you also to all the others who are really engaging in this negotiation process. We were presented together under the leadership of Peru and Rwanda, that draft decision that was developed in Geneva last year, and we all together were really working hard in order to bring that main mandate through. I would like just to make 4 points. The first, I think, when we look at this issue of plastic, let us remind when plastic was introduced to the market, it was seen as a miracle substance. I think it was really that at once things were possible that were not possible before, at costs that were available for everybody. So plastic was seen as a great step forward. And clearly, plastic was enhancing the quality of life. We cannot look away. Our life would be different without plastic. That's a couple of years ago. But I think the second point I want to make, which has also become absolutely clear, is that plastics have become a global challenge. They're really an issue of global concern. We did not see this. We were not perceiving that when we just saw the benefits of plastic when it was introduced. And I think just the study presented by IPEN was absolutely clear that this has become a problem that needs a global address. We cannot address that anymore nationally. The trade, the use, the life cycle of plastic is a global one. The problem is a global one. The source is a global one. So we need also a global approach to it. And that leads me then over to the third point. The third point is it's really great that we are able to adopt here in Nairobi, or that we will be able to adopt, as Anna was just saying, it was adopted by OSCPR. We are confident that we will be adopted also afterwards by the UNIA, a mandate for a plastic convention, and I think there are a few successes which we can be proud of in that mandate, which we are able really to ensure that mandate. One is it's addressing environment and health. I think that's important. The scope this was an issue that was difficult in negotiation at a certain moment. Second, also, as both Sam and Anna were saying, the scope will be plastic throughout the life cycle. It's not only about marine pollution, it's not only an end of pipe approach. We are looking at all plastic throughout the life cycle, including microplastics. And it is looking at issues like from the product design, from the beginning up to the end of plastic. So that's really absolutely good. And another element which we think is also good, which is also clearly enshrined in the mandate, this convention should be complementary to the work that is going on already, because we have certain conventions that have powerful tools. The Basel Convention, the Stockholm Convention, that they are important building blocks to address that challenge. And we should not start to duplicate or even weaken these tools. We should contribute so that they can continue their work and be strong and make deliver their work. So this complementarity, I think, is for us a very important issue, because we do not want to weaken the potential that we have already now. So the first 3 points, it was a miracle substance. It became an issue of global concerns. We are glad that we have adopted the third point, that mandate here. But let me add a fourth point. What will be the next steps? Well, we have now a mandate, but this mandate has solved many issues, such as the scope, but it did not solve all the issues, namely not what measures will be adopted under these different elements, what measures will adopt to look at product design, at ways and whatever throughout the life cycle, and secondly, which of these measures will be legally binding or not. And these are two absolutely fun. So we made an important step, or will make an important step tomorrow by adopting the mandate, but that means we have to engage now in real work, and the tough work, the difficult work is still before us. Because many of these issues that will be critical for the success of the agreement will have to be solved in these negotiations. And for that, in order to find the right answers in these different areas throughout the life cycle of plastics, we need a good understanding of issues. And there's just the study you're presenting, challenging a little bit that notion that the more recycled, the better. This kind of information will be critical in order to adopt the right measures. And that leads me to a very last point on that. I think we have to be aware of speed in the negotiations might not be in line with ambition and robustness. I think that is absolutely important. I think we should take the time to fully understand the problems, to develop a common understanding of the challenges, and to take the time to develop the right tools, and to having a robust, ambitious and rigorous agreement will be more important than delivering on it already in 2 years. That means that we have to go full speed ahead. We have to make sure that this process is well set up in the pre-meeting leading to the negotiations, and then we have to engage in these negotiations to make sure that we not only deliver here a marvelous mandate that has a potential for everything, but that we use really the potential for the most ambitious outcome possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. It was very enlightening, and the mandates that are given, at least in the resolution, are focusing on health and design, and less is or no, maybe no is stated about the chemicals also in plastics. And when we are talking about health, these health issues are coming also from chemicals in plastics. And in the coming years, we have also something to work on to include in the scope and in the common understanding, and also we are talking about our health. It's not about other people's health. So these are the main points that we would like also to reflect in the future. Now, I would like to open question and answer for reporters. Reporters who are online can drop your questions with a text on the Zoom link. The reporters of IPEN, which Bjorn presented, are online on the website, and you can access them easily. Now I would like to open the floor for reporters to ask questions and to tell us your name, where you are from, and which specific report you are referring to, because we have also online experts who are authors of the reports in Australia and Sweden. They are online. We may also forward some of the questions to them. Now the floor is open.
Thank you. Thanks. I just wanted to ask the delegate from Peru, as a co-sponsor of one of the original resolutions that had wide support, particularly from environment groups, how happy are you with the text that has been negotiated here at UNEA and is expected to be adopted tomorrow? Did it meet the expectations of Peru, having been a co-sponsor? Thanks.
Would you please?
Sorry, it's Nick Perry from AFP. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. And I can say, and I'm pretty sure on behalf of the 61 co-sponsors as well, that we are 100% happy with the outcome, because actually the original text was improved by several provisions throughout the negotiations. You know, there were 7 days of intense negotiations with co-sponsors and all the membership and also civil society, and thank you so much for being there for us. And the text was improved with several provisions we didn't have in the original text. So all the part of means of implementation is better reflected now, and also we didn't have nothing related to the workers, and now this is we can find this in the text. So we are full with gratitude and with hope for the actually for the INC work and for the future treaty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
John Getty from Reuters. I'd like to ask the delegates, given the discussions you've been having over recent days, do you think there is a consensus among countries that plastic cause health issues? Or are there lots of differing opinions on this? And if so, what are those differing opinions? Thank you.
There's no doubt. Do you want to go in?
No.
Yes, please.
Thanks so much. I think the answer is obvious because, I mean, from scientific point of view, evidence-based information that we have everywhere globally, we know that the effects of plastics, don't forget that there are additives in plastics which are hazardous substances like poison and pollutants. So when they are indiscriminately burned or destroyed, these are released into the environment. They affect human health as well, and the ecosystems. So, enough evidence is there for us to know. So, there's no argument about it that it affects our health and environment. It is there. Thank you. And you mentioned something else. Where do you go from here? Yes, it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I see that, and next to that. Yeah.
My name is Helen from the Nation Media Group in Kenya. Most speakers yesterday were in support of the circular economy, but your report says that it's toxic to recycle. So what other alternative do we have in place of recycling that cannot affect our health?
I'll take that question. So the first thing that we're pointing out here, there's a problem. So the first way to solve a problem is you have to identify what the problem is. In this case, many of the plastics that are produced, most of the plastics produced, there's no information what's in the material. So you have to first identify what is in it. And if the companies would disclose what's inside the material, that will begin to change what material, what toxic substances go in or out. So the first has to do with what it is. The second is with regards to essential uses. The beginning of the conversation around plastics was more around single-use plastics. That's obviously the least essential material out there. So you're not going to get rid of plastics overall. But when you look at the trajectory of growth, while you think it's a problem now, it's set to be many times worse on the planned sales and growth of plastic and chemical production. So you have to know what's in the plastic. Then you have to know how do you redesign it so that you're not putting hazardous substance in, and you have to disclose that information. With regards to the plastic that already exists on the market, that is known to our view as plastic stockpiles. That's the same as we look at hazardous waste stockpiles. We do not want to see that going back into the market. We also don't want to see it being burned as fuel to be both a toxic pollutant emission nor a climate change contributor of greenhouse gases. So when you look at that, then you say you have large stockpiles. So it gets your final point, which is how do you resolve that? Well, who cleans up a toxic mess? Who's responsible for that? Then you have to go back to who are the producers? how are they going to pay for the cleanup of those stockpiles? So it's not a matter of taking that material and making something else out of it. It's a matter of who's responsible for that. And we go upstream to, as we showed earlier, it's the manufacturers as well as the extracting producers of that. And so when you look at the future, how is the treaty going to begin to send signals of plastic should be much more expensive than it is, because the burden on society is much greater than it is once it's sold down the supply chain.
Thank you. There.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Eric from Bloomberg, and my question is, what are some of the key points which are covered in the text, in the agreed text for the treaty?
Which are covered in a decision.
Which issues?
Which is covered.
Okay.
Just explain the decision. Someone else should do it, I'm not.
Yes,
That is all on.
So what are the key points
The question is, what are the key points which are indicated in the text, in the agreed text?
Okay. Thanks. Thanks for the question. I'll begin, and then my colleague is going to complement it. There are several provisions in the text, which is going to be formally adopted tomorrow by UNEA. But I would like just now to highlight the scope, which is covering all environments, not only marine, but it's all in there, like rivers and soil and air. So this is very important, the scope. And the second issue, which is very important, is that it covers the full life cycle of plastic, and which is coming from design, use, production, and consume as well. And what's also important is that it's covering microplastics. As it was pictured here, it's which are invisible, but they are as real and as toxic as we hear today they are. These are the three elements I could highlight, and then over to you, Franz.
Just to complete, and then of course this is the scope, all these elements that have to address, including product design and all this. But then what it also does, and that's also a very important part, it sets up a process. It sets up, this is the scope that the legally binding instrument will cover. It says the legally binding instrument will include voluntary and legally binding measures. And then it sets up a process that begins with a preparatory meeting, open working group, which should be organized in the next 6 months. And then the first negotiation committee, INC, should take place in the second part of the year. And then the negotiation should conclude in principle by 2024. That's like that, the expectations. Let's see whether we'll be able to deliver that. I think that's the important thing, is really this decision is not defining the treaty. This decision is setting up a process that will bring us to the treaty, that will deliver, hopefully, on the scope, just as described by Anna.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador. Would you like to add more?
Actually, to me, I may not even restrict myself to the text I read here, because once we are going for an intergovernmental negotiation committee work, that's where the real things will come into place. I mean, a number of meetings will be held. So now it opens up the, opportunity for people, anybody, group of people, to really negotiate a text. Yes, so we look forward to that one. This one is more or less something that has been agreed on to move forward. But the written, and until we come up with the text of the convention, we have not actually gotten what we wanted. So I believe the opportunity is still there for us to get all these things inside. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. If I may add, we are also very happy in the scope that are included with the life cycle, with the environment, and with the microplastics, but we were talking about the whole day, I mean this afternoon, about chemicals, but the chemicals issue, hazardous chemicals, were negotiated out. And if we are not discussing about chemicals, how are we dealing with the design? Because we are going to talk about green designing. By green designing, we would like to promote either to eliminate or minimize the hazardous chemicals that are added to plastics, which are impacting the environment, the whole environment, and also human health. So this is just a tip to give to the reporter. Next is, I saw your hand. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to contribute to the question from, I think, is it Dairy Nation? Yes, because we...
Where are you from?
Sorry, my name is Billy Lombe, and I'm from Center for Zero Waste and Development in Africa, a member of IPEN. Yes, so we participated in the recycled pellets, the toxic chemicals analysis. So, so I wanted to contribute on her question, just relating to the issue of the circular economy. Because when you look at of course, most countries, they are so excited about going into circular economy. But when it comes to for example, organization at the national level, we are pushing for, there's what we are developing a national roadmap on circular economy. We are developing a national roadmap on circular economy, and our emphasis has been that any, for example, recycled pellets or plastic that's supposed to go into the recycling industry, as long as it contains toxic chemicals, that should be considered non-circular, you know. And this has been our push, and of course, this has been received with the research work which has been done. Because, you know, we need scientific data to prove that this is what is happening and we need to do something about it. And also, so because, you know, Africa has been a recipient of most of these plastics, and I think this is the time that we are taking up our stance, especially starting from the national level, ensuring that we develop, we have policies, regulations, the EPRs in place, and, you know, it's good that most of African countries are dealing with the issues of plastic pollution, especially when it comes to having regulations in place on single-use plastics. So the issue of circular economy is really a big thing, and I can say that most of us members of IPEN or organizations that are part of IPEN, we've tried to engage our government to ensure that whatever roadmap is being developed, or in terms of the strategy regarding to circular economy, at least we consider the issue of where toxic chemicals, where plastic pellets which contains toxic chemicals should be considered non-circular. And so thank you very much. And I think this is if you need to learn more, to understand more about this issue, I think we are available also to share more data to see how we are pushing for a safer circular economy.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the reflection on this, and also thank you very much also for contributing to the studies that have been done. You really contributed a lot. Before coming to the questions, now we have also some questions from online attendants. Bjorn, would you like to?
There's a question that came in from a reporter at Chemical Watch, and this is addressed to Ana Teresa from Peru. And the question is, you have stressed the need for also looking at toxic additives when tackling plastic pollution. How are additives addressed in the resolution? So the question is, how are additives addressed in the resolution?
Thank you for the question. And actually, this is this is not covered in the resolution. We need to remember that this is a resolution beginning the process of the real negotiation. Now we have some general lines on the scope of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, which is going to work for the next at least 2 years. And we have given the membership the mandate to negotiate to end plastic pollution. And now it's actually up to membership, and I would say also actually up to civil society and to the press, to the media, to provide the negotiators, so the member states, with all these outcomes of research, as we have clearly here today. And we have been hearing throughout this week. So this is the beginning of the process. The resolution is just the kickoff of the process. And what is important is the scope is broad enough, so it can, the treaty, the text of the convention can cover these aspects as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you like to add?
There was just a follow-up, and just to clarify, on that it was the word chemical. Does the word chemical show up in the text?
Better. I think not.
No.
I think no.
So the word chemical does not show up in the text? Okay.
We can go through the text.
Yes.
I have it here.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And
Thank
if I understood too, it was through the design and through the health were the only affiliations to the chemical additives. Yeah, so chemicals is only affiliated through design and health. Understood. Okay, that's all the time. The question from here.
Thank you. I have one hand raised there. You?
Oh, John.
John.
Sorry, one more very quick question. You spoke about full life cycle and how you define full life cycle being production, consumption, design, and end of life. Is that well defined within the text? And are there differences of opinion on what full life cycle actually means? Thank you.
No, it's not defined, but I think we also have we were launching a process, and the important thing is to keep the scope open. So many of these questions that are coming up, they will have to be answered in the negotiations. No, life cycle is not designed and defined, and of course there may be different understandings. Just some steps in the life cycles were identified where we have to look at. There might be other steps that are not mentioned where we also have to look at. That's not the list that cannot be expanded. It's just the important thing is that this mandate is for a new legally binding instrument with measures on all these different areas of the life cycle of the plastics, and these questions will be solved in the negotiations, hopefully. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you very much. We are on the way to conclude, but if there is a question, one last question from a reporter, because this is a press conference, so we are taking questions from reporters.
Yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Dominic Kirui. I'm a freelance journalist. My question is, you have talked about chemicals all the time, but you have not mentioned one. What are the chemicals that are contained in plastics?
It's a great question. There's studies out there that estimate around 10,000 chemicals are in plastics. We have references that in our reports. And there's also a recent study in the last year, about 25% or more of those chemicals assessed are known to be hazardous. So to say which chemical, how many, there's many, many chemicals, and of those, many have been assessed for hazard. We do provide a report here around certain chemicals known as endocrine disrupting chemicals, EDCs, and these are chemicals that when they react with your hormone system can lead to reproductive harm and cancer. So we talk about chemicals of concern becomes the framing around what are the chemicals that are priority. Thank you. Yeah.
In my submission, I mentioned some chemicals, persistent organic pollutants. These are carbon-containing chemicals which are toxic to humans and environment. They are bioaccumulative. That means that they, accumulate human systems, the fatty tissues of humans and animals. And therefore, they are also persistent in the environment, and they have a long-range environmental transport, okay? So, as he said, and they lead to, dangerous or serious health issues, like cancers and all those things. So there are a number of them. So those ones are actually addressed under the Stockholm Convention on POPs, we call them. So there are other chemicals, apart from the organic ones, there are others there which I also mentioned. So that's a few of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ambassador, before you leave and we conclude, you would like to say one thing, and then we will conclude.
Well, perhaps the colleagues will also want to add in something just to the end. So I have to leave for negotiations. But I would like just to highlight one thing, because throughout the discussion now and the question, sometimes implicitly there came a notion or a feeling that this is a north-south developing country divide. I think this is not. When you look at the history of the proposal, it combined ambitious developing country and developed country. And if you look who tried really to weaken the decision, there are also many important developing countries who have been trying to weaken it. So if we start to look at this as a north-south problem, then we will not reach a good outcome. We have really to be aware this is a division between those who are ambitious and want to find a solution, and those who don't want to try find a solution for whatever reasons they might also be legitimate, and we have to overcome together the concerns of those who are not yet ready to make these ambitious steps which we would like to make together. Just this is important. If we start to create that wrong impression, then that is a recipe to fail in negotiations. And sorry I have to leave right now, but yes.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ms. Lecaros, if you have a concluding remark.
Thank you. I think in this process, in this issue, but also in all environmental issues, the concept is that we are one humankind and we have one planet, and regardless of where are we situated, we should aim to ambition in the sense of protecting what we have and to avoid polluting more, damaging more, and we are all embarked in this, and we have several countries. If you go, for example, throughout the list of co-sponsors of the resolution, the Peru-Rwanda resolution, let's say, the draft, we find developing and developed countries, and we find countries from all the regions in the world. So it is a commitment all of us are taking into account, and in the negotiations it was clear that it was no doubt for no delegation that this is not an important issue, and that then we need to end plastic pollution. So we are all embarked in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With this, I will go to the concluding remark from IPEN. Yeah, when we are talking about plastics, the more visible aspects are attracting people, and we can talk about the visible aspects, but the great impact on human health and the environment comes from chemicals. The chemicals issue, as we say, is not really very attractive to be inserted in this process, And when we are also talking about the mandates on health and also on the design aspect, in the future, the discussion of chemicals will also come. And if we would like to end the pollution from plastics, we have to focus on chemicals as well. Otherwise, sometimes I say, shall we close the tap, or shall we deal with the mess that's coming from the tap? The pollution and pollutant dilemma. If we are talking about pollutants, this comes with green design. What are we going to design? We are designing carbon and other chemicals which are mixed together and coming into plastics. And after they come to our areas, whether it is in the marine or terrestrial or anywhere in the environment, human being, we cannot clean the whole time the pollution. But if there is a means in the design aspect, controlling the pollutants, especially the chemicals in there, which are affecting biodiversity and others, this is the way that we can also end pollution from plastics. So what we say is we have to really focus on these issues and we work together. I'm really very thankful to our panelists in this podium from Switzerland, from Peru, from Ghana. And I would like also to thank all the attendees and also for all the journalists who come, and also virtually following our dialogue here. And I'm also very, very thankful to all the team who worked on setting up this podium, this forum, this room, and also all the IT process here. We are really very grateful. Having said this, I wish all of us a world free from the hazardous impacts of plastics from our health and from the environment. I wish you a toxic-free future for all of us and everyone. Thank you very much.